and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you. Welcome back, friends. Ashley Burgess here today. And today I want to talk about relationships. But more specifically, I want to talk about when in a relationship there is a lack of intimacy, maybe also a lack of sex or both, and how we get to that place. And it seems that we get in that relationship, and most of us have what we consider the honeymoon. Even if we're not on a honeymoon, even if we're not married, you have that honeymoon period of time where everything seems to be, moving and going and things seem to be working. But it seems that all of a sudden things change. And it's not like it stops, but it's like over a period of time, maybe it's the energy that we're putting into the relationship, maybe it's that dedication that we're using, but we also have responsibilities, we have a lot of things that are on us, and so we're dealing with trying to make the relationship work, trying to keep a connectivity between us and our partner, whether we're dating or living together or married, whatever that looks like, and trying to keep, as we say, the fires ablaze, but it can be very challenging. And I found that the longer a period of time where intimacy is lacking, it's a lot tougher, it seems, to get back. And I think a lot of times it's a lot tougher to get back into that intimacy is because, it's like anything. It's like when you've had an argument with somebody, for example, and there's a lot of water under the bridge, and it's hard to figure out how to, first off, most people have a difficult time even apologizing or even reconnecting. But if they do, it's hard to reestablish that connection because there's been so much time, there's been so much ill will, so much resentment that it takes a long time to get past that. And usually the relationship kind of ends, it stays at arm's length, and it doesn't seem like that relationship really gains the same traction it had before in a friendship. But in a relationship, when there was intimacy or there was sex, there was both in the relationship, and then it seems like there's been a steady decrease, and even for some people, none. There's a lot of studies out there. There's a large percentage of our population, and later on, Arnold Smith, the creator of the Connection app, will be joining us live by Skype at the end of this segment, beginning of the next segment. But I think there's a lot of statistics out there. There's a lot of Americans and a lot of folks all over the world that are living in sexless relationships or sexless marriages. And I haven't seen this before, but I kind of created the concept of the 90-10 ratio. And I think a lot of people live in these types of relationships because, quite honestly, they get along with their spouse, or they get along with the person they're with, they have a lot of fun together, or they have a lot of things that they have similarities, or they have certain curiosities or some things that they like to do that are very similar. Also, it's the length of time that they've been together. The idea of changing is not something that they want to do, and so they're willing to let go of that intimacy in lieu of having that core relationship. Because I think that, as working with clients, if somebody's in a really challenging relationship, an abusive relationship, and there's no sex, that's definitely not something that's going to hold water. If somebody's in a relationship that's very emotionally abusive and there's no intimacy, again, not a win-win combination at all. And what I've seen is that a lot of folks say, well, you know what, my spouse and I get along really well, we get along, we're good friends, we respect one another, but the one thing that is missing is the sex component. And so I call it the 90-10. For the most part, their relationship is an A. However, 10% of it has fallen off by the wayside, and that happens to be the intimacy component. It's interesting how I feel that, you get into those situations, you get in these relationships, and you really love the person, but it's hard to have the communication around the sex life. It's funny how you can be someone's best friend and still not communicate about those things. Like, why is it taboo, or why are we so scared to have those conversations? And some of you might say, Ashley, quite honestly, I've tried to have those conversations. It's either gone on deaf ears. I've tried to have those conversations, perhaps, and my spouse gets very angry with me and says that I'm pointing blame. I've tried to have those conversations and it gets into a shouting match, or I try to have those conversations and we talk and I think that we've made some sort of progress when in reality we haven't. And it's interesting, even some of you might have had that conversation and your spouse takes it personally about their ability to perform, and that turns very south very quick and very sour conversation. And so you just try to pick your words and you try to avoid it, and you feel like you're walking on eggshells when it comes to intimacy and sex conversation. And I get it. It's very challenging because it's hard to communicate one's desires and feelings without the other person feeling inadequate. And I think that's where we have a lot of kind of intense feelings that we build up and know where to put them and know where to communicate about it. And I think that's why we find a lot of folks nowadays, either, resorting to online entertainment or stepping out of the relationship. And some people aren't, but at the same point in time, I feel like a lot of folks out there and a lot of people feel as though there's a part of their life that they've kind of committed to just accepting that it's not going to exist. And that can be kind of challenging. And I know some of you out there say, well, I've been in a marriage for 25 years. The sex began to dry up, 5 years into the relationship, 7 years into the relationship. And maybe we get along, we're good friends, but that intimacy is just gone. And I know that many of you watching as well have children, and in the beginning when there wasn't any children, the relationship was probably different. And then children, even though they bring people together, they also kind of put a wedge in there apart. It's like it's tough to be intimate and to have children, and then to have that desire to continue to want to continue the sex life, to find that spark. And then, outside circumstances, I'm taking that like as far as in a vacuum what I'm talking about. But, when we look at whether it's just, it's not something new. I think that a lot of women and a lot of men, when something is no longer new, it's no longer interesting, it's hard to get that energy and desire to do it. I think that a lot of folks as well, it might be weight. It could be emotional stability, whether you're feeling depressed or anxious, can lead to the fact that you don't want to actually be intimate or have that sexual interaction with your partner. There's a lot of things that come into play here. And so there's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of tips we can go over. And there's some different things that we can do in the relationship to begin to ignite that flame again. But we have to understand a lot of times why the intimacy left in the first place. So when we return, we'll be talking with Arnold Smith. Arnold Smith is the creator of the Connection app. And if you've heard my nationally syndicated radio show, Live Your True Life Perspectives, you've heard him on the radio practically every week that we're on the show. So we'll be on the show tomorrow live at 1 o'clock Central Standard, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And there's definitely links on my website to that too. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about sex, intimacy, the lack thereof, how to open communication, and kind of, quite frankly, what can we do? And better yet, what should we not be doing? Because I think a lot of times we might choose options that aren't the best for the relationship. So stay tuned. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.